Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting Vobes One-Eyed Kenobi Showbie. Actually, I lie. It's not going to be exciting because I'm not very well. It is the 16th of March 2020. You'll have to excuse this very rough voice. And I'm not going to be here probably for the whole hour, probably only about 10-15 minutes. Just wanted to say to you, lovely people, hello, I'm not very well. Who knows? I may have the coronavirus, COVID-19. I had COVID-18 and now I've upgraded to 19. But I'm waiting for the penultimate 20. Would have been much nicer if it was COVID-20 in 2020. I think COVID-20 in 2020 would have been great, especially as it's 2000 hours. That would have just completed it, especially for people who are a bit nerdy and like all the numbers in an even way. Maybe it's the Asperger's syndrome. Who knows? But anyway, here am I in front of you and you are there. Now, there's no content whatsoever in any shape or form here because I don't know if you've heard the Prime Minister this morning or this afternoon or whenever it was. There is now no antisocial gatherings whatsoever. Sorry, not antisocial. You can be as antisocial as you bloody well like. You can stay inside and don't come out. I'm confused. Are you confused? Perhaps you can enlighten me because I don't know what's going on. Am I allowed, for example, to go out and make a video about the lovely bit of heritage and countryside as long as I don't actually see anybody? And if I went out, say, with Kevin Hall or with the lovely Julia or even Matthew Holdsworth, who I'm due to go out with on Thursday, it says we're not supposed to have any socialising. So should I just do it in mime? Am I allowed not to? Am I supposed to not talk to him? I mustn't socialise with him. I just nod at him, point over this direction. How about in there? Fancier? Oh no, we can't go to the pub. Pubs, restaurants, cafes, all those sort of things are going to be shut, walled up. What are we supposed to do? I don't know. I'm confused. I thought that we Brits were able to fight this in a much more sensible way than burying our heads in the sand. But what do you think? I'd be interested in your views. Not going to be here long, so make them snappy. We have Tim Williams out there, Andy Frierson, Peter May, hello to you, Robert Baxter, the Veg Grower podcast. We also have Cynthia's Camera, Ernie, Kevin Rambles, Audrey, Forbes Hamilton, Philip Hammond, hello all of you, Ernie is there, Wendy Laurie, Andy Stacey, Judith is also there, Laura Riddle, so many lovely people have come along, and Ed Loud, which is great, Andrew Norris, David Reedy, good evening to you. Tally-ho, Richard, says Ernie. He says, working from home for the next 2 weeks means an easy life. Yeah, well, my work, of course, is out and about, so I want to know, what should I do? Mickey Stevens says, hello and hope you recover soon. Thank you very much. May keel over in this very show, but don't panic. Deborah Martin says, get well soon. Thank you very much. Have you got a temperature and a cough? Asked Linda Kane. No. The lovely Julia took my temperature and it was something like 35.7 or something like that. Or was it 85.7? I don't know. I don't even know if it was in centigrade or Fahrenheit. Perhaps Julia could confirm what it was. But it wasn't a temperature. And as you can see, I haven't got a cough. However, the interesting thing is I'm confused because, you know, you read you're supposed to have a fever, you're supposed to have this dry cough, it's supposed to be constant. What does that mean? What does constant mean? It's very vague. Does it mean cough, 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 cough? That's constant. Or does it mean cough, cough, cough? Cough, cough, cough. Cough, 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 cough. Oh, cough, cough, cough. Does that mean, is that intermittent coughing? Which one is it? I mean, very few people, I imagine, are going cough, 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 cough. Maybe they do. Jeff Kellison says, I went through Las Vegas this morning, not very busy. These are strange times. Andy Dalglish says, all credit to you, Dickie Vobes, for putting on a show, even though you're feeling rough. Take care. Hope you feel very quickly. Thank you very much. Hope you feel very better very quickly. I do very quickly. Julia has confirmed that there was no temperature, which is fantastic. Thank you very much, Julia. Andy Dalglish says, oh, yeah, I've just read that. Mike Dick, I'll read it again, actually. Andy Dalglish says, all credit to you, Dickie Vobes. Thank you very much. Mike Dixon says, good evening to you, wishing you a speedy recovery. Thank you very much. Linda Kane says, probably not the virus then. This is where it gets a bit spooky and worrying. Because what if you've got just an ordinary cold, just an ordinary head cold, like, possibly this is? Then you get the virus. Is that double the amount? Are you now double likely to go to hospital and die in an agonising death? Or does the virus come along and go, bloody hell, he's already got something. Damn, blast. And have to go and wait his turn. Maybe the first virus, whatever it is, the ordinary cold is going, no, you're not coming in here, mate. I've got him. Go and find your else some other sod. Maybe that's how it works. Who knows? Roy Ballinger says, get well soon. I am doing my utmost. I have got my soothers here to ease my throat, made by the lovely Howes. Well, I assume they're lovely. I don't know. I haven't tried one. Might end up putting one in my gob now. Veg Grower says, message retracted, which is a common phrase that a lot of people have used in the past. Forbes Hamilton says, Audrey Forbes Hamilton says, I think I'm going out for your walks in the countryside is good for you and rarely pass anyone. Well, now, of course, nobody's daring to go out. And how would they police it? Are they likely to say, excuse me, are you going, is this necessary, this journey that you're doing? All you've got to do is wind the window down and say, COVID-19, stand back, officer. And they, what are they going to do? Could put you in prison? Can hardly put you in prison. There's not going to be enough room. Well, we can get about 30 of you down at the prison cell, but we can't get 66 million of you. Of course they can't. They can't really charge you, can they? They can't say, well, put you on a charge, you're fined. Well, it's like, well, there's no work, is there? I've got no work, got no money. You can fine me as much as you like. It's fine. Fine and dandy. Linda Kane says, can't see a reason why you can't go out and film. If you go with someone, keep your distance. Don't worry. I will have a long lens on, something like a 400mm lens. So whoever I'm going with can be one end of the town. I'll be at the other end. I can film them as if they're right next to me, but actually they'd be miles away. Fiona Cooper says, hope you feel better. Thank you very much, Fiona. Has anybody else, has anybody actually got the cold? I thought I'd come on here and say, do you know what? I think I've got it, or maybe I haven't, or, whatever. This is the situation. But I'd like to hear somebody who's actually got the cold, got the virus. Somebody's got COVID-19. I heard that we've had 55 deaths in the UK. Seems a lot of worry over 55 deaths. I mean, I don't mean that in a very derogatory way even. And I assume, that the tally is going to go up. But if there were sort of 1,000 deaths, I could get it, that these stringent measures. But perhaps people are anticipating. Now, of course, I'm not laughing and joking about this situation because I know, and I spoke to the SMT, which is the senior management team of the Bald Explorer Group, only this morning, to say I know that we have some elderly members of our group. There's Kevin, of course, and that they are very worried. They're very worried, and they may need some assistance. And so, if I could only throw this cold out the window, don't think that this cold is just an act, so that I don't have to go and help anybody. That's not the case at all. Oh, no. But if we can go and do a bit of shopping and deliver it and try and get the group, the Bald Explorer group, to help other people, I think, that's one of our duties in this time of need. Kevin's Ramble says, Sue Blount's daughter is staying in an MGM place in Las Vegas, which has been shut, and they have been told to vacate the hotel by midday tomorrow, and they're not due back till Thursday. Are they allowed to stay if they keep feeding the meter? The one-armed bandit. Rami Boo says, I read an article that said some people will only have mild symptoms with a slight sore throat and a runny nose. Well, how would you know then? So how do you know if it's a cold or the virus? Well, this is the problem. I'm going to stick this in my mouth. I hope you don't mind. Ooh. How would you know? If it's that vague, you can't isolate the country because they've all got stinking colds. It just seems very weird. Linda Kane says there's 55 at the moment. Yes, and I know I'm not knocking it by any means. But we've probably had more deaths due to terrorist attacks, haven't we? I'm not saying anybody is, that this is, but these stringent measures do seem, I don't know, maybe to me, What do I know? I'm not, I'm not anybody. I'm sucking this thing, which is a bit of a. I'll come back to that. It's nice, but I can't really concentrate whilst I hear it bashing against my teeth. Fiona Cooper says, I had a bit of a sore throat over the weekend, but it's cleared up now. Well done. Linda Kane says, I'm 6 months away from being old. Oh, Linda, turn the clock back. Turn the clock back. You're not old. I've seen you, Linda, dancing on the dance floor. Kevin's Ramble says, oi, hang on, Mr. Richard, LOL. Julia Hartley says, Kevin, I'll hold him, you hit him. Charming. 70,000 people die from ordinary flu in America every year, and it rarely gets any other coverage in the media. Now, this is an interesting thing because I did see a graph, and you don't know who to believe. Somebody sent me some doctor's notes, as it were, and it said people who die from flu, and it had a little bar chart, and that was there. People expected to die from this COVID-19 was right up here. So, 1 minute you're looking at that and you're going, oh, okay, so it is bad. Then other people are saying, oh, no, it's just nothing. I don't know what the fuss is about. And in the end, you've got to try and work out what it is. But you've got the government coming down mad as fruitcakes with all their sort of, this is doom and gloom and nobody can go to work and we're all going to die by Christmas. Don't know which Christmas, but one of them. And you've got the media then jumping on that. And you've got this sort of seesaw game, haven't you? The government say one thing, the media hype that up. The government say, oh, crikey, that does sound bad. And I wonder if the government's listening to the media. And so they say, oh, well, in that case, we'll do this. And then the media go, oh, my God, we're doing that. So we better cancel all this. And we're going to... And so they hype it up even more. And then the government thinking, crikey, things are bad, aren't they? Listen to the radio. So we better do this. And you wonder who is actually leading this on. It does seem a bit bonkers. Nigel Sadler says, I've had a cold for over 4 weeks. Clearly not COVID-19 because I'm still alive. Oh, yes. Supposedly you have ANS spread it without knowing it for about a week. Then you get a persistent, constant, unrelating cough, then a fever, he says. Or, as Lisa says, it could be that you just have a runny nose and a sore throat. There are just so many conflicting things. I don't think anybody really knows, apart from those who've actually got it, but they don't know whether they really got it. Michael Angel says, keep your chins up. We can talk ourselves into being negative. It's very true. We can. Sorry, says Linda Kane, but have you read or seen the situation in Italy? No. I don't think it's actually very helpful looking at how other countries deal with anything. To be honest with you, because we're not there. We don't have their medical systems. We don't have their police. We don't have their government. We're a completely different thing altogether. I mean, in the early days, I watched some stuff out of China, and the so-called footage was just so extreme and barbaric. People were being dragged out of their houses. People were being self-isolated, not self-isolated, forced isolated. Boards banged up on people's houses. North Korea, supposedly, that when the first outbreak came out there, they shot the bugger. You don't know what to believe, do you? You don't. I don't believe necessarily what the official broadcasters are telling, because I don't think they know what they're talking about. I can't believe what goes on YouTube or any of the news outlets, because everybody is remember, you've got to remember, the biggest thing about all of this, any media outlet has to pay for itself, and they're vying for bums on seats, viewers. So they've all got to outdo each other and say, well, watch my content. And in order to get people to watch somebody else's content, it's always going to be slightly hyped up. So we can't trust anything other than our own life experience and say to ourselves, do you know what? Is this really as bad as when it was in the Second World War and aeroplanes were coming over our head? Have we got this out of proportion? Or am I just going to be ill a bit? Some older people, they may get ill. They may well get ill. But you can only do what you can do. That's the thing. Robert Baxter says that I've heard they're trying to slow it down until the weather gets better. I was wondering about that. Isn't it going to be nicer weather for the bug if it's warmer? Or is it that in warmer weather the bug can't travel about? Couldn't quite understand. I thought colder weather would prevent it from getting about. I know what they mean. They don't want the NHS to be too inundated, but it looks like that whatever happens, more it's the snowball effect. More poor people are going to end up knocking on the NHS door. Rami Boo says, what's that, Linda? Cause it's the big 50, I'll beat you there. All right. Julia says, Italy and its deserted streets fill with sing from the inhabitants, singing out of the window, eerie but an enchanting phenomenon. But people will get bored, won't they? People will get bored. Judith says, trouble, no one has any immunity unless they get COVID-19, whereas the occasional flu, people will be immune, so it doesn't spread so quickly. Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? Ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, none of us know. None of us have had it. Or if we have had it, we don't know about it. We're still alive to tell the tale. And the question is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'm going to try and knock this cold on the head. I've just had some lovely cold and flu tablets. Trying to get into the shops. This is the other problem that we have, the panic buying. Why are people panic buying? If people panic buy, I haven't panic bought anything. Morrison's is just round the corner from me. And this morning, I went over to the lovely Julia's and we went out and made a video because we've got to do, that's my job, so that's what I do. There was queues. I've never seen these queues into the, it was like at Christmas time, going into Morrison's. People were queuing up because they're scared. This is a ridiculous situation that we're scaring the nation. It's absolutely ridiculous. So people are buying everything. My son Billy went in there and he said all the tins have gone. Everything, food and all this sort of stuff, gone. Nothing on the shelves. Panic buying is not the way forward because all you're doing is you're being very selfish. Supermarkets now saying they're going to open an hour earlier or an hour later so that if you're over 70, you get a chance to have a look at those lovely empty shelves for yourself. Well, that's very nice, isn't it? But if you're just, somebody who has to work and you need to eat, there's plenty of selfish people who've got lots of tins. Now, I want to know, are you one of those people? Have you got all the pasta? Have you got all the loo rolls? Are you one of those people who've panic bought because you're panicking? Well, go and share it round to a few people because there's going to be people like me and my family who've not panic bought and we will probably go hungry. Linda Kane says in warmer weather there's less general pressure on the hospitals. Francisco Bellringer says, Bojo doesn't know what he's doing. I don't know what you mean by Bojo. Jeff Kellison, oh, you mean Boris Johnson? No, that's ridiculous. Of course he knows what he's doing. You have to, I know the government, and you can argue with this, that, and the other. When it comes to a crisis like this, in the end, you've got to put your faith somewhere. And you can say people don't know what they're doing, and that's well, you're in Italy, so it doesn't really make any difference, does it, to you? At the moment. Jeff Kellison's, I don't think the warmer weather is going to make much difference because it's spread like wildfire in Singapore and on the equator. So there we go, the voice of reason. Julia says something to do with the UV rays are reducing the virus in the air. Well, maybe. You can't slow down a virus. You need to prevent people catching it. Close schools, churches and shops. I don't know. I just think just let people go about their daily business. The flu will come and the flu will go. I think maybe we're just all overreacting. I mean, I don't know whether I've got it or not, but if everybody's got it, nobody else can catch it. Is that illogical? You've just got to protect the vulnerable. Isolate the vulnerable, make sure they're looked after, make sure they're fed, make sure all their needs. Try and find some people who haven't got it or who have got it and have now got rid of it so that they can look after the vulnerable. Those people who've had it and now got rid of it can be serviced by other people. It doesn't matter whether they've got it or not got it, because they will leave food and all that sort of stuff so that the intermediate people who had it, who don't have it, can then provide the food, pick up the food, wash the food, take it to the vulnerable people. And so they're all right. The rest of the population can just get on with coughs and sneezes and things. They're not going to die. It's just going to feel rough. They can get on and keep the country going. Then once it's all past and it's gone, the vulnerable people can come back out. You just got to protect the people who are vulnerable. Excuse me, I just need to clear my throat. Talking is probably not a sensible thing. Andy Dalgley says, absolutely, Julia. Very much looking forward to some cleansing UV. Interesting is the fact that there's things are not happening in the world. I saw a video today where they were in Venice and they looked at the gondolas and the whatever you call it, the streets in Venice that are full of water. Clear. You could actually see the fish. You could actually hear the bird song in different parts of the world, like in London, because the traffic isn't moving. The environmental effects is probably quite good to have a bit of a rest. So, maybe it's not all bad. Kevin's Ramble says, personally, I think Boris and the experts are doing okay. Linda says flu will come and flu will go and kill hundreds of vulnerable. Well, you got to protect the... what do you do? What do you do? Ultimately, it's nature, isn't it? We all feel that we're entitled to live. And all we can do is what man can do is best to survive. But none of us are entitled to anything. We're not entitled to it. I really, some people often say about human rights. But it's like, what does that really mean? Who are you going to take? You can't take it to God, can you? Even if God existed and say, here, God, I've got rights, I shouldn't be dying from this disease. None of us really have these human rights. It's just a sort of made-up thing that we all adhere to. If you've got a virulent disease that's killing the population, or if they were Martians coming in, you say, excuse me, Martians, I've got rights. I'll take you to court. The Martians aren't going to listen. They're just going to blast you away. As in the War of the Worlds. So what you need is a nice bit of bacteria to kill off the virulent disease. Fiona, I may be talking rubbish, by the way. I may be talking complete and utter rubbish. Don't listen to anything I say. I'm only here for your amusement, so you can poke me and make me jump up and down with my croaky voice. Fiona Cooper says, I'm worried about the secondary school shut, as many of my son's mates think do our homework. Many of our son's mates think do our homework. Well, again, this is, what are you going to do? How are you going to force people to do the homework? Mike Dixon sounds 80% of us are going to get coronavirus. Whatever we do, once we've had it, we'll build up an immunity. So that's got to be good. Yeah. They meet for the cafe for coffee, says Fiona. Oh, what? Oh, well, they're not allowed to do that now. No social thing. We're not allowed to go out and any unnecessary social. Linda Kane's upset. I realise that, Linda. I'm not poo-pooing what you say. I do hear you. Your sister is vulnerable. Absolutely. I put myself into the situation and thinking, if my dad and my mother were still alive, my dad had dementia at his end, as you know. If he was still alive, he would be very vulnerable. And I know that there are people all over the place who are in difficulty anyway, and this is enough to push them over the edge. Now, I could have had some horrible thing that could push me to the edge where I'd be all right. If I don't get the virus, then I get the virus and I die. But ultimately, what can you do? I don't want to be mean or nasty or anything about this, but there's only so many doctors. I think we've got to sort of get a hold of this and think, well, if it was the bubonic plague, what would we do? If it was a thing that killed us faster and quicker, think of the panic then. This is going to bring out the best and the worst of the humans. And you can see that the worst is people are panic buying. The best are those who are going to go out and help people at the end of their day. Of course, people are going to be worried, and that's true. Maybe this is a big wake-up call about globalization. Now, I didn't really want to bang on about this, but this has travelled around the world incredibly quickly in the space of a few months. It took the bubonic plague something like 2 years, didn't it? But it was still got around bloody quickly. This is less stringent than that. And we haven't got carts on the road, not yet, saying bring out your dead. This isn't the first time that we've had a terrible plague. It is the first time, and I think it's rocked us a bit. It's rocked society. It's rocked the governments. People don't know what to do. We're all panicking. We're all worried. We've all got friends and family who are are vulnerable. But what are we going to do? I mean, the trouble is, you're just not going to get everybody to conform because they won't do it. People have self-preservation in them. They're just not going to conform. We can say you've got to stay indoors. I would say about 80% of people who are sheep will try and do their best they can. But as they need to get food, or as the house walls become too much, or like Christmas time when the families are all sharing in the same house, what are they going to do? They're going to get on each other's nerves and they're going to have an argument. People are going to get hurt. People are going to march out and it's going to be bedlam. People are going to shoplift. There's going to be punch-ups in the supermarket. We saw what happens at Christmas time on Black Friday when people are, arguing over a hairdryer or a television set that they don't really need, that they're buying. This is going to get ugly. And we've got to come to some sort of terms with this. And I don't know what the answer is. Who knows what the answer is? But we've got to not panic. I don't know how. I can't appease anybody on this situation. All we can do is talk like friendly people, try and stay friendly, talk to each other, share advice, and try and find solutions in what way we can. I don't want to frighten anybody any more than what the media and the government are doing. Let's go back to the comments. Veggrower says, when the planes were grounded after 9/11, there was a noticeable difference in the world temperature. There you go. I've always kept extra rations in for such occasions, says Mark Donny McLeod. Do you know, it never struck me to keep rations in the house in case we had a pandemic. Never struck me. But lesson learned. I guess because Morrison's is only over there, I always think that they're my larder. I just go in, I just pay to get it out. Ramiboo says, my mum's nervous about going to the hospital next month for her knee replacement surgery because she thinks she'll catch it while she's there. Well, that's the best place to catch it, let's face it, because people who've got it are going to be there. I don't mean to be mean, but you know that what was it, MRSI, whatever it was, you had to do all this. When I had my eye operation, I got that MRSI, or whatever it's called, in my eye. Caught it by going to the hospital. Gave me 9 weeks of severe pain, and in the end they had to remove the eye because the treatment was so painful and I was suicidal. And I genuinely mean I was suicidal at that point. It was only the fact that I had children. I knew that I couldn't say goodbye to them. But I got that from the hospital. So she's every right to be nervous. I'm not trying to put the willies up you, but they're going to be the centres of all this horrible stuff, isn't it? Kevin's Ramble says it was in China last November. I agree, Richard, about the globalisation. The borders should have been closed faster. Russia has done it. Julia says, are there any other topics to cover today? You promised a shorter show to reserve yourself whilst talking. Oh, yes, half an hour has gone. Ramiboo, is England having a daily broadcast from Boris like we are from Trump? I think this press conference for just over an hour will stir people up. Well, I think it's an interesting thing because people want reassurance. They want to hear what's going on. At the same time, as you say, it will stir them up. But if you tell them nothing, they're going to worry. So, again, what do you do? Mark Donny says, I'm not panicked. I take notice and I do what I'm advised. Stiff upper lip crack on. Julia says, Philip, sorry to hear that. I'll be thinking and praying for all those who are vulnerable and you mean immune suppressant. Absolutely. All our thoughts obviously are going to be with those people. And if you know somebody who is in a difficult situation, obviously one's duty is to do the best for those people that you can. If that means you do their shopping and you leave it outside, that's what you do. One has to, you have to do what you can. But I think we're all going to be very much self-reliant on doing what we think is best rather than relying on the powers that be to help us, because there's too many of us. There is just too many of us and not enough powers that be. Philip says, thanks. Mickey Bain says, an ideal time for people to maintain the roads and railways and airports. Do you know, there are so many bloody potholes in and around Worthing. I was coming back from Mr. Suggett's show yesterday, which I did on the Veg Grower podcast. I went down one of these potholes, was about that deep. Bang. I thought my axle was going to break. Really did. And then, as I drove, there were more of them, and I was swerving like some drunken loon. And I thought, if a police car was to pull me over, obviously I've got better things to do. They're on Twitter, aren't they? Hate police. And if they were to pull me over and say you're driving erratically, I'd say, yeah, look at these bloody potholes everywhere. Spectrum is Green saying a great show. Thanks very much. I don't feel it's a particularly great show. I don't really want to be talking about any of this. And everybody's talking about it. Everybody's worried about it. Nobody really knows what to do. I don't know what to do. I mean, I'm the first to say, and I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm confused, I am confused as much as the next person. Linda says, yes, from today, I think it should only be 2 experts because he looks like a rabbit caught in the headlights. Well, he does. I mean, how the media puts their stuff across is... We can all criticise it, can't we? We can all criticise it. But just think, put yourself into their situation. Doesn't matter who the Prime Minister is, whether it's Trump or Boris or whoever it is, the pressure to do the right thing and get it right must be immense. Not only is it going to be your legacy, but people's lives are going to be attached to what you say and do and the advice that you're given. It must be an impossible situation. I'm sure Boris certainly wasn't looking forward to this. And Alex Cummings clearly didn't have this on his suggestions to advise the Prime Minister. Unless, of course, he set it up. But if we take ourselves, just for the moment, out of the goldfish bowl, let's just take ourselves out of the goldfish bowl, worries and everything aside, just for a moment, as a hypothetical mental experiment. If we take ourselves out and look at the world as it is, what do we see? I don't know really. What do we see? We see a world in crisis and we see a lot of trouble. Now, I know that I often go on about the old ways, the old villages, people who would grow vegetables in farms near the villages, that if you wanted fresh fruit, you'd have the fresh veg and fresh fruit. You'd have the farms providing that close to the towns and villages. You'd have villages that had a community of people who worked in the village, that people would work on the land, be connected to that land. And I think now, more than any other time, it seems that it's a shame, because that globalization where we're lastminute.com, we can get you whatever you want, it'll be here tomorrow, but we're flying it across from the other side of the world. I think we've got to rethink that. We've progressed into a situation where we can do that, but at the same time, we can also cart things we don't want to cart across the world next day, such as this virus. And I think we've got to start thinking about those old ways. Not that we go back and we don't have penicillin and that we break our backs ploughing the field with an old wooden plough. Obviously, we can't go back and do that. It'd be ridiculous. But somehow we've got to cherry pick the good things from the community and the things that made life work from the old, and not necessarily have this lastminute.com society where people have been pushed into the towns and the cities. And now the irony, of course, is that where poor people lived in the countryside, now the poor people live in the cities and the towns, and it's the rich that live in the countryside and have the clean air and can afford to have all the fresh fruit and can self-isolate with no hope of meeting anybody else who's going to give them COVID-19. Andrew Norris says, yes, it's all one is talking about today. Tried to find the BBC podcast download last night, but it was practically on every programme. I know, it is. Couldn't agree more, Richard. They're human too. The pressure must be immense. Talking about the Prime Minister and what have you. Thanks, Ramy Boo. Mike Dixon, apparently The Metro newspaper now have a page every day that includes 10 stories about the help people are providing others. We need more good news stories, and we need to tell people what they can do, because I think people don't know what they can do. They've got a good idea of what they can do, but the big problem is we're being fed all of this from all different people, and we're having a discussion, we're coming up with our own conclusions, and there is no one definitive answer. If we go back 80 years, when we were last under threat of a major problem during the Battle of Britain, and Hitler and his bunch of cronies were going to invade across the invasion coast back in the day by sea, Operation Sea Lion. If we go back those 80 years to this, almost this very time, a little bit later in the year when the Battle of Britain starts, it's quite interesting. We knew who they were, and we knew where they were, and we could all rally up and help each other and do it. The problem is now this foe doesn't wear a uniform with a swastika on it, and it's hidden in each of us, possibly, and we don't know. Instead of being able to muck in with each other and have a stiff upper lip, we've almost got to be completely isolated and on our own, and that's where the problem is. But in those old days, people did listen to the voice of the BBC was the voice of the nation, wasn't it? Everything was funneled through. We've got so many different channels that people don't know what to do. J.M. Harvell says media caused Trump to get tested for the virus when his doctor said he didn't need it. More pressure on the media than now. Yeah, I don't suppose that really helps, does it? What's that going to do? Whoever the president is, if they, you've got Canova virus, it's like, so what? Better that he has it, gets through it. Excuse me. I have a runny nose. Better that he gets through it and gets out and is okay. Obviously, he's quite old, isn't he? So people, I suppose, are hoping that he has it so he pops his clogs. Those in the Democrats, I guess. Audrey says, "You're losing your voice, Richard. Look after yourself." Yeah, I'm going to end it with 40. I've done 40 minutes. I was only going to do 10 minutes. Yes, feel the way for ibuprofen. Thank you for your inspirational work. I don't know how inspirational any of my stuff, trying to fathom out the common sense in this. And I know there are people like lovely Linda who's very, very concerned. And I appreciate that, Linda. And I hope you don't feel I'm, belittling any of your worries and things like that. But there is just that, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Nobody wants anybody to suffer. Least of all me. I don't want anybody to suffer. I don't want to, I used to run a podcast called The Vobes Show years ago. You may know this. Some of you may have listened to the original podcast. And I ran it from 2005 till, I can't remember, 2012, something like that. Ran it for a fair old time. Anyway, one day I had an email from a woman who said, "Dear Richard, just wanted to let you know," what was his name? It was something like Tony, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head now. He said, "Tony, I'm afraid my brother Tony has died. He was only something like 46, something like that. He had a terrible complaint and he's died. He used to listen to your show, and I think he used to email in, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. I just wanted you to know that, he's passed on and he'll be sadly missed." When I read that email, I was absolutely devastated. I'd never met the guy. I had read his email out. I'd remembered it. I'd read his email out about the week earlier about some stupid topic that I was talking about. And it made me very aware that people who've watched my stuff, it humbled me. People who watch my stuff are just as mortal and just as real as I am. Because to me, I'm just sitting here in a suburban house in Worthing. Well, not suburban, but I'm in a seaside town in Worthing, near the sea, edge of the town, foot of the South Downs, all this nonsense. And I'm doing this show, and I'm talking effectively to a camera, and beside the camera is a screen where text goes up representing real people. And I did this podcast, didn't even have that. I just do the podcast, it would go out and the people would email in. My daughter would say, send an email to richard@vobes.com. People would email me. And one of them was this chap, Tony, whatever his name was. I can't really remember his name. I wish I could remember his name. It wasn't Tony, but it was like that. And I was told he died. Really hit me hard. It really hit me hard because each one of you lot actually become part of me and part of the show. Those people who communicate regularly become characters. You are very much the characters of a soap opera in my head as the characters of a soap opera on the television. So when I see Linda Kane, Mark Donny McLeod, the Veg Grove Podcast, Ed Loud, Rami Boo, Andrew Norris, etc., you're all real people. And I know that you are just as much mortal as I am. And then if I was to lose any of you, not only just to this awful COVID-19, but, if you had a road accident or was run over by a bus or was swallowed by a dolphin or, eaten by ants as you slept doing a bit of night fishing, whatever it might be, I would be absolutely devastated. It would be terrible. So I don't want to lose you, and I want you to look after yourselves. Also, if you've got a spare bit of change, you could donate. No, I didn't mean that. I'm getting more gravelly and gravelly. I'm going to go now. Do take care. Don't know if there's a show on Wednesday. I will try to keep the entertainment going as much as I can, whether I'm self-isolated or I've escaped. But one way or another, keep this channel open. Help your friends, help your family, help your neighbours. Look after yourself, keep in touch, use the Bald Explorer group as a base. If you need friends, if you're lonely, or any of those sort of things, remember the team behind the Vobe Show and the Bald Explorer are here for you. They really are here for you. This is a time of crisis, and we will be here for you. If you need food, if you're frightened about going out, get in touch. Somehow we'll put the message out. We use the network that we're building up, and we'll try and help you. If it means that Mr. Richard Suggett has got to grow some cress in an emergency for you and get it to your house, we'll do that, because that's what we will do. We will look after our own as well as anybody else that we can do. So, that's my message, really. So take care. There's a cough. Oh, my God. I'm going to be dead by Christmas. We don't know which one. Probably not for another 50 years. So look after yourself. Thanks so much for watching. And thank you for... If you didn't watch, what would I do? What would I be up to, eh? I love what I do. I hope that some of it makes sense and that we can keep you entertained. So, 45-minute show tonight. Thank you very much. Do take care, and I will see you soon. Yes, I will get better. Don't worry. The lovely Julia has given me some tablets, and I'm on chamomile tea, ladies and gentlemen. Chamomile tea, which is a bit cold. Tomorrow, if you're interested, the Bald Explorer video is exploring East Preston. Should be quite nice. Take care. Thanks for watching. And I will see you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.